I said, in my face. Why are you in my face? Why are you recording me? Ain't you supposed to be security?
The 32-year-old mom of two maintains her innocence and says she's being sued for $24 million by a security guard accusing the singer of attacking, scratching, and spitting on her back in 2018. And if you're wondering if Cardi was coached to keep a poker face on the stand,
Oh, yeah.
well, that didn't happen. The eyes were rolling, there were yawns, and she answered questions like this.
Why were you concerned?
Because I'm pregnant and this girl's about to beat my ass. Hello?
So she's overweight, right? In your opinion.
She is like security heavy. Like she could protect the building.
So you guys have probably seen a bunch of meme-worthy moments already from the Cardi B trial, and trust me, I've been cackling at these clips just like everyone else. But here's what nobody's actually talking about while they're making SNL comparisons and wig jokes. This entire situation is absolutely ridiculous, and frankly, it reeks of someone trying to cash in on a celebrity's success. We're about to dive deep into everything that led up to this courtroom circus, expose why this lawsuit is more questionable than Cardi's attorney objections, and cover all the best moments that have the internet collectively losing its mind. But buckle up, because what you think you know about this case, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And before we get into the tea spilling, let me be crystal clear about where I stand. Cardi B is being sued for $24 million over what allegedly happened in 60 seconds back in 2018. $24 million for a verbal argument that supposedly lasted less time than it takes to microwave popcorn. But here's where it gets really interesting, and why this case is way more complex than the viral clips suggest. Before we continue though, if you're loving this deep dive into celebrity legal drama, please hit that subscribe button. It genuinely helps the channel grow and lets me keep bringing you the most sophisticated tea-spilling content on YouTube. Trust me, we're just getting started with this wild story. Let's rewind to February 24th, 2018, shall we? Picture this. Cardi B is having what she calls her freshman year of stardom. Bodak Yellow had just blown up 7 months earlier, she's navigating fame, and she's also secretly 4 months pregnant with Culture. Not even her parents knew about the pregnancy yet, because apparently keeping a secret in the entertainment industry is harder than keeping acrylic nails from breaking.
Well, first and first, I didn't want people to know that I was pregnant. Second, I was a little like, I don't want a guy that I work with to know I'm going to a vagina doctor.
When you're a newly famous rapper trying to keep a pregnancy under wraps, you don't exactly book appointments at regular medical offices where paparazzi camp out like it's Black Friday. So Cardi's team arranged for a private Saturday appointment at a Beverly Hills obstetrician's office, the kind where they literally close the entire practice to other patients just to protect your privacy. This is where our plaintiff, Emani Ellis, enters the story. Ellis was working security for the building that housed this medical office. Not security for Cardi, not security for the doctor's office specifically, building security. Think mall cop, but in Beverly Hills. And here's where the stories start to diverge, in ways that should make anyone with half a brain raise an eyebrow. According to Ellis, she was just innocently doing her security rounds when she happened upon Cardi B in the hallway. She claims she made some comment about recognizing the celebrity. You know, as one does when they're supposed to be providing discreet security for a building where someone specifically came for privacy. But Cardi's version? She gets off the elevator on the 5th floor and immediately notices Ellis with a phone, loudly announcing, "Oh my God, Cardi B is here," while appearing to be filming her.
As soon as I'm walking, I felt her walking right behind me. And then she said something. She said, "Oh my God, Cardi B." That's when I turn around. And she got the camera right here, like she recorded me. And I'm like, yo, why you recording me? And she practically did admit that she recorded me, because she said, "Oh my bad," for contact, but she just kept following me. She said it to me and I kept walking.
What if she was not a security guard and she was just a random human and said, "Oh wow, it's Cardi B"? Would you have taken offense to that?
No, I didn't even feel offended when she first said it. I felt offended when she kept following me. She recorded me, and you're supposed to be a security. You're not supposed to be recording patients going to any doctor, any. That's what offended me. When she first said, "Oh my God, it's Cardi B," I just kept power walking and didn't say nothing. I said something the second time she said it, and I turned around and I saw that she was recording me. And I'm like, yo, why are you recording me? Ain't you supposed to be security? And she said, "Oh my bad." Then she kept following me, and now I'm getting annoyed. Like, it's like, you're the security guard of the building.
At a secret medical appointment, where the entire point was avoiding exactly this kind of attention. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm paying for privacy at a medical appointment, especially when I'm trying to keep a pregnancy secret, and security is literally the opposite of secure, I might have some words too. But what happens next is where this whole thing goes from celebrity having a bad day to lawsuit that makes you question everything. Ellis claims that Cardi B violently attacked her, supposedly scratching her face with those infamous coffin-shaped acrylic nails, spitting on her, hurling racial slurs, and basically turning into some kind of pregnant rage monster in a medical building hallway. Cardi's version? A heated verbal argument where they went chest to chest for about 40 to 50 seconds before the receptionist came out and broke it up. No touching, no scratching, no spitting, just two women having words about boundaries and privacy. And here's what's particularly interesting about the timing of all this drama. So if this assault was so traumatic and violent, you'd expect someone to, I don't know, call the police immediately, file charges, seek medical attention right away. Well, Ellis did eventually get cosmetic surgery for a scar on her face. But here's the fascinating part. There's absolutely no evidence linking that scar to this incident. No photos from the day of the incident, no immediate medical records, no police report filed at the time. The lawsuit wasn't filed until 2020, 2 years later. That's 2020 for those keeping track. Right around the time when Cardi B's career was absolutely peak everything. She was making serious money, and everyone suddenly remembered they had grievances with rich celebrities. But wait, it gets better. Ellis is claiming she lost her job over this incident. And according to her lawsuit, Cardi B somehow used her celebrity status to get Ellis fired, and even conspired to have all security footage of the incident erased. Ellis claims Cardi used her celebrity status to get her fired and destroy evidence. But then why wait 2 years to sue? If you knew someone had that much power and was actively working against you, wouldn't you file immediately before they could do more damage? The plot holes are giving me secondhand embarrassment. But it gets even more interesting when we look at what's missing from this case. Here's something that should make every reasonable person suspicious. In a building in Beverly Hills in 2018, with all the security cameras that typically exist in such places, there's apparently zero footage of this incident. Ellis claims Cardi B was part of some conspiracy to erase the footage. Cardi's legal team says they checked extensively for any available security cameras and found none on the 5th floor where this supposedly happened. So either Cardi B is a criminal mastermind who can orchestrate evidence destruction while 4 months pregnant and having her freshman year of fame, or maybe, just maybe, this whole thing isn't as dramatic as someone wants us to believe. But let's talk about what we do have. Contradictory testimonies that keep changing. Ellis testified that Cardi scratched her face, but then couldn't keep her story straight about which side of her face was supposedly injured. She claimed there were racial slurs, but the specific details kept shifting. She said she was traumatized and needed psychological treatment, but somehow managed to wait 2 years to file any legal action. Meanwhile, Cardi has been consistently saying the same thing. It was a verbal argument that lasted less than a minute. They were chest to chest, but no one touched anyone. And the receptionist came out and broke it up before anything escalated further. And speaking of that receptionist, her testimony is absolutely devastating to Ellis's case. But we'll get to that bombshell in a moment. First, let's talk about why this trial has become the most entertaining thing on the internet this week. Now, anyone who knows Cardi B knows that asking her to tone down her personality for a courtroom is like asking water to stop being wet. The woman built her career on being unapologetically herself, and apparently that doesn't change just because there's a judge present. From the moment she took the stand, it was clear we were in for something special. The internet has been absolutely living for these moments, and honestly, I don't blame them. Let's start with the wig situation, because apparently Ellis's attorney thought this was relevant legal questioning. The man actually asked Cardi,
Yesterday you had black hair, short hair, today it's blonde and long. Which one is your real hair? Or are they both real?
Cardi's response?
They're wigs.
Followed by a facial expression that clearly communicated what she thought about the intelligence level of this line of questioning. But it doesn't stop there. The same attorney then asked if she was affiliated with a gang.
Do you have any affiliation at this time with a gang?
Which got objected to immediately, and then pivoted to asking detailed questions about her nail routine. Because apparently in his legal strategy, the key to winning a $24 million lawsuit is understanding the intricacies of coffin-shaped acrylics with rhinestones. Cardi patiently explained that her nails were coffin-shaped and not sharp, basically the least threatening nail style possible. She even pointed out that none of her nails broke during this verbal altercation, which you'd expect if she was actually clawing at someone's face. Then we get to the disability question, which produced one of the most perfectly Cardi responses in legal history.
You were causing a disturbance. Maybe
I
she
wasn't
wanted to
causing
record
a
you.
disturbance.
Do you own the building of 8920 Wilshire Boulevard?
A doctor's office.
Do you agree that you were a guest in that building? You were
Yes.
a visitor, correct? When a security officer tells you to leave, are you supposed to leave?
Objection, Your
Yes or
Honor.
no? You were causing a disturbance in the building.
She started the disturbance.
Do you remember yesterday you said that there was a verbal altercation between the two of you? Do you remember that?
Yes.
It's a verbal fight. You had a verbal fight with her. You used the F word during that fight, didn't you?
Yes.
What other words did you use? Tell us in your own words what you said.
I said, on my face. Why are you in my face? Why are you recording me? Ain't you supposed to be security?
Tell it
Why?
to her now. Go ahead.
Huh?
Say it again. Say it.
Objection, Your Honor.
You want me to say it to
I
her
want
face?
you to tell it to her face what you said on that day so she can hear it for herself
Objection
again.
is sustained.
Hey, Your Honor, do we have civility in the court?
And if you wanted to scratch or cut her face with your right hand or your left hand, if you wanted to do it, you could have done it, correct?
But
You're
I
not
didn't.
disabled.
But
right?
I didn't because I had a baby inside me.
How did she know?
When the attorney kept pressing about whether she considered herself disabled during the incident,
Are you disabled? Yes or no?
At that moment, when you're pregnant, I'm very disabled. You want me to tell you the things I can't do?
Fine. What was your...
the entire courtroom burst into laughter. She continued, "I was pregnant. I couldn't protect myself, even if I wanted to. She's like twice my size." And this is where Cardi's testimony gets really interesting, because she's painting a picture of someone who was vulnerable, pregnant, about 130 pounds, facing off against a much larger security guard who was following and recording her.
Because I'm pregnant and this girl's about to fucking beat my ass. Hello?
Hello. Hello. I'm here.
But the viral moment that had everyone comparing this to an SNL skit came during cross-examination. What do you think of these courtroom moments so far? Let me know in the comments if you're Team Cardi, or if you think there's more to this story. During one of the most memed exchanges, Ellis's attorney was trying to get technical about legal terminology, throwing around phrases like form interrogatories and request for admissions, basically trying to confuse Cardi with legal jargon.
Do you know what's discovery?
Yes.
What are form interrogatories?
Oh, honey, I don't know what that means.
What is special interrogatories?
I do not know.
What are requests for admissions? You don't know, right?
Then he asked,
When I'm talking to you now, are we having a verbal altercation?
Cardi's response,
We having, I'll say, a debate.
she has this incredible ability to cut through nonsense with simple, honest responses that make everyone else's dramatics look ridiculous. But my personal favorite viral moment came when they were discussing Ellis's size compared to Cardi's. When asked if Ellis was bigger than her, Cardi responded,
You said she's bigger than you? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
How do you know that?
I mean, look.
Physically bigger? She's taller?
I mean, you have her medical records,
I don't
right?
have anything. I'm asking you the question.
I mean, I was 130 pounds at that time.
So she's overweight, right? In your opinion.
Objection, relevant.
It's sustained.
It's a little.
You don't need to answer me.
Okay. Make fun of her that she was overweight when you were there in the hallway?
I don't think so.
Did you call her fat?
No, I was calling her a. Yes, but she is like.
What? Say it.
Security heavy. Like she could protect the building. Type big. You know what I'm saying? She just
Right.
looked more developed than me.
The facial expressions, the gestures, the perfect delivery. It was pure Cardi, and the internet ate it up. People were saying it was like watching someone roast their opponent during their own lawsuit. But here's what's getting lost in all the memes and laughter. While everyone's been focused on Cardi's comedic timing and wig changes, the most crucial testimony came from someone who actually witnessed the incident, Tiara Malcolm, the receptionist at the doctor's office. Malcolm's testimony should be front-page news because it basically destroys Ellis's entire case. According to Malcolm, she heard a commotion in the hallway and came out to see what was happening. She testified that she saw no physical fighting whatsoever. None. Zero. Just two women arguing verbally. And she assumed it came from Ellis because Ellis was facing her while Malcolm's back was to Cardi.
When you were there, did Miss Ellis attempt to strike Cardi B?
There was hands going while I was in the middle. I know no one landed, or I didn't even realize, I guess because my adrenaline, that I had a mark on my forehead. Besides me getting a scratch, nobody, as far as them two, hit each other.
Who scratched you?
Based off of, like I said, I didn't know that I even got scratched until I went into the office and the nurse was like, Tiara, your forehead. But I can only assume Cardi B was behind me because that was my main concern.
Let that sink in for a moment. The only person who apparently got scratched during this violent assault was the receptionist, and it came from the person who's claiming to be the victim. Malcolm's testimony corroborates Cardi's version of events entirely. Verbal argument, chest-to-chest positioning, receptionist intervening. No physical contact between Cardi and Ellis. When the judge asked Malcolm to characterize the argument and she said she wasn't sure if she could swear in court,
Be this, be that. I don't know if I can curse, but...
Judge Ian Fusselman responded,
So we've heard just about everything so far.
Okay.
which got laughs from the entire courtroom. But this isn't just funny. It's legally devastating to Ellis's case. You have an independent witness who saw the whole thing, supports the defendant's version of events, and potentially got injured by the plaintiff rather than the defendant. And yet, Ellis is still asking for $24 million. But wait, there's more witness testimony that makes this case even more questionable. Dr. David Finke, the obstetrician Cardi was visiting, also testified as a witness, and his account is absolutely damning for Ellis's case. Dr. Finke testified that he rushed out of his office when he heard the loud disturbance in the hallway. According to him, Ellis was flailing her arms and out of control during what he called an epic yelling match. But here's the bombshell. Dr. Finke testified that he witnessed Ellis strike the receptionist, not the other way around. He said there was a lot of yelling, a lot of finger pointing, and that Ellis hit his receptionist on the shoulder. The doctor also testified that he clearly saw a phone in Ellis's hand during the incident, which contradicts Ellis's claim that she wasn't using her phone at the time. So now we have two independent witnesses, the receptionist and the doctor, both saying that Ellis was the aggressor, that there was no physical contact between Cardi and Ellis, and that Ellis was the one being violent toward other people.
As soon as I got into the hallway and realized what was going on, my receptionist was between the plaintiff and the defendant, and there was a lot of yelling, a lot of finger pointing. My receptionist was struck. I remember it was like on the shoulder kind of thing. I think it was her right shoulder. And there was a phone in the security guard's hand, and the phone kept going back from the ear to point and then back to the ear. And at one point, kind of both hands were kind of flailing. I was trying to match sort of with body language, the intensity of it, to get across the point that this was not okay, and this is your job.
Who did you address that to?
Mrs. Ellis.
This is the kind of testimony that destroys lawsuits. When your own version of events is contradicted by every independent witness, and those witnesses say you were actually the one being aggressive, that's not a good look. And yet, we're still talking about $24 million. Let's talk about that number for a moment, because it's absolutely wild. $24 million for a 60-second verbal argument outside a doctor's office 7 years ago. To put that in perspective, that's more money than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. For an incident that lasted less time than a commercial break, where independent witnesses say nothing physical happened, where there's no evidence, no police report from the time, and a story that keeps changing. Ellis claims she suffered from anxiety, depression, PTSD, insomnia, and body shaming as a result of this incident. She says she needed psychological and medical treatment. She got cosmetic surgery for a facial scar. But here's what doesn't add up. If this was so traumatic, why wait 2 years to file the lawsuit? If the assault was so violent, why is there no contemporaneous evidence? If Cardi B was hurling racial slurs and spitting on people, why didn't anyone call the police immediately? And most importantly, if Ellis was just doing her job as building security, why was she apparently filming a celebrity who had specifically arranged for a private appointment? The more you look at this case, the more it starts to feel like someone saw a very famous, very wealthy person and decided that a brief argument could be turned into a life-changing payday. But let's not forget, this isn't happening in a vacuum. This lawsuit comes at a very interesting time. Here's the uncomfortable truth about this whole situation. Ellis's case follows a predictable pattern we see with celebrity lawsuits. File shocking claims, demand millions in damages, hope for a settlement rather than a trial, because most celebrities quietly pay up to avoid the hassle. But Cardi B decided to fight this case. And honestly, good for her. She's not just defending herself. She's sending a message that not every celebrity is going to roll over for questionable lawsuits. And it's working. Ellis's case is falling apart under scrutiny. The lack of evidence, independent witnesses contradicting her story, inconsistencies in her testimony, and behavior that doesn't match someone who experienced trauma. But there's something else troubling about this trial that goes beyond the memes. The way Ellis's attorney has been questioning Cardi has some serious racial undertones, asking about her hair and wigs, the inappropriate gang affiliation question, trying to make her repeat profanities to her face until the judge intervened. These aren't random tactics. These are attempts to make a successful black woman fit harmful stereotypes that might sway a jury. And frankly, it's backfiring. The internet sees right through it, and Cardi's handling it with grace while still defending herself effectively. The timing is also interesting. This trial happens just weeks before Cardi's album, Am I the Drama, drops September 19th. While I don't think Ellis planned this, the irony isn't lost that Cardi's getting sympathetic publicity right before a major release, with everyone seeing her as funny and relatable, while Ellis looks increasingly opportunistic. Based on all the testimony and evidence, here's what actually happened. Ellis was working building security when Cardi arrived for her private pregnancy appointment. Instead of being discreet, literally her job, Ellis started filming and loudly announcing she'd seen the famous rapper. Cardi, trying to keep her pregnancy secret, confronted Ellis about this unprofessional behavior. Ellis got defensive. The situation escalated into a heated verbal argument lasting about 50 seconds. When the receptionist and doctor came out to break it up, Ellis was the one being physical, which is how the receptionist ended up scratched by Ellis, not Cardi. Ellis possibly got fired for unprofessional conduct. 2 years later, when Cardi was at peak success and worth millions, Ellis decided that argument was worth $24 million and filed this lawsuit. But here's what doesn't add up. Ellis originally claimed Cardi used her celebrity power to get her fired and destroy evidence, but her legal team recently dropped those claims. Why drop such serious accusations unless you realized you couldn't prove them? Also, if Cardi was powerful enough to orchestrate cover-ups, why would Ellis wait 2 years to sue? If someone had that much power and was working against you, wouldn't you file immediately? The evidence supports Cardi entirely. Independent witnesses contradict Ellis's story. Ellis's own post-incident behavior, engaging Cardi on social media, trying to get the receptionist to help with her claim, doesn't match someone traumatized by assault. Even the receptionist knew her honest testimony wouldn't help Ellis's case, which should tell you everything. And honestly, the fact that she's doing it with humor, authenticity, and grace, while her attorney objects to inappropriate questioning, just makes me respect her more. This trial has accidentally become the perfect promotional campaign for someone whose brand is built on keeping it real and not letting people take advantage of her.
Fraternity issues with Stephon Diggs.
On the microphone.
Telling you guys, when I say that my forehead is raw from changing all these wigs, raw.
So you thought the Cardi B trial was over after those viral courtroom moments? Think again. What happened during the lunch break today has everyone talking. And I'm about to break down not just the closing arguments that could determine this $24 million case, but the absolute chaos that erupted outside the courthouse that had Ellis's attorney literally asking the judge to punish Cardi. We've got closing arguments that exposed just how weak this case really is, a courthouse confrontation that shows exactly why Cardi was defending herself in the first place, and we also have the verdict that could set a major precedent for celebrity shakedown lawsuits. But here's what's really getting me fired up. While Ellis's attorney was in there asking for nearly $500,000 in damages, a male reporter was outside harassing Cardi about pregnancy rumors and her personal relationships. When she finally had enough, she threw something at him. And Ellis's lawyer? Of course, he would try to use that against her in court. If you want the complete breakdown of how this trial went from comedy gold to absolute pandemonium, smash that subscribe button because this tea is scalding hot and we're about to spill every last drop. And if you missed our part 1 video explaining the background of this case, make sure to check that out as well. Okay, back to the tea. The jury is still deliberating as I'm recording this, so we'll have a verdict update towards the end. But what I'm about to show you from these closing arguments will explain exactly why this case should never have made it to court in the first place. Let me set the scene for you. It's lunch break during closing arguments of a $24 million lawsuit, and Cardi B is walking out of the courthouse. She's been sitting through hours of testimony, maintaining her composure while being questioned about everything from her wigs to her pregnancy. And she's probably just trying to get some air. That's when a male reporter approaches her with what he calls a legitimate question. But listen to what this man thought was appropriate to ask a woman in the middle of a legal proceeding.
Hey, Cardi, you're beautiful. Cardi, insiders are claiming that Offset is publicly bragging about getting you pregnant for the 4th time. Do you foresee any paternity issues with Stephon Diggs?
Let me break down how absolutely inappropriate this question is. First, he's asking about private family matters that have nothing to do with the assault case she's defending. Second, he's asking about paternity issues, essentially questioning whether her relationship with another man might affect her children's parentage. Third, he's doing this outside a courthouse where she's fighting a $24 million lawsuit. Cardi's response? She grabbed a pen from a fan and threw it in his direction. She said. The reporter, apparently thinking this was charming, responded,
I still love you even though you...
but Cardi wasn't having it.
Here, you're disrespectful. Don't do that. Do you see women asking those questions to me?
No,
You see
ma'am.
women asking those...
When the reporter had the audacity to call it a legitimate question,
It's legit.
Why
Cardi delivered what should be a masterclass in calling out inappropriate behavior.
do you feel as a man you get to ask me those type of questions? Act like you have some manners. And your mama taught you, respect women.
And honestly, good for her. This woman has been sitting in a courtroom for days defending herself against a frivolous lawsuit while maintaining her dignity. And this reporter thought it was appropriate to ambush her with invasive questions about her personal relationships. But here's where it gets even more ridiculous. After the lunch break, guess what Ellis's attorney decided to do? After the jurors were sent in for deliberation, he brought up the pen throwing incident to the judge, claiming that Cardi had been also, quote, staring at his clients throughout the day, and claiming that they were afraid for their safety after that event, ultimately asking that she be admonished for her behavior. Think about the audacity of this move. His client is suing for $24 million over an alleged assault. And he's now trying to use Cardi's response to inappropriate questioning from a reporter as evidence that she's somehow threatening or violent. Thankfully, Cardi's attorney, Peter Anderson, stood up for her immediately, stating that Cardi had done nothing disrespectful while in the courtroom and had maintained proper decorum throughout the entire trial. And after that, the judge simply stated that he can't make any judgments based on anything that didn't happen in the courtroom and that he didn't witness himself, and dismissed it. Now, let's break down Ellis's attorney's closing arguments, because it was exactly what you'd expect from someone whose case is falling apart. A lot of emotion, very little evidence, and some truly desperate attempts to justify a $24 million demand. Attorney Ron Rosenjan-Faza started by complaining that Cardi used profanity in court, calling it disrespectful to the judge and courthouse. But as Cardi's attorney would point out later, she was simply repeating, under oath, what was allegedly said during the incident. If you're claiming someone used certain words, the witness has to be able to testify to those exact words. His strategy was to paint Ellis as this innocent, hardworking security guard who was just doing her job when she was violently attacked by a celebrity who thought she was above the law. But here's where his argument gets particularly weak. John Faza admitted that the two key witnesses, the receptionist and the doctor, only saw the aftermath of the incident.
Then we learned throughout the case that when Cardi B came to the building, she caused a disturbance. She was yelling and screaming, top of her lungs, going crazy, to the point where two other witnesses, Miss Malcolm, which was the secretary of the doctor, and Dr. David Finke, was so loud that those two people came out after about 40 to 50 seconds. Now, the issue with that is those two witnesses didn't see the four things that happened before that. So yes, they're witnesses, but they're not witnesses to that first part, that which would include taking a swing at Miss Ellis, spitting on Miss Ellis, calling her the N-word, and ultimately cutting her face. None of that was seen by those two witnesses.
So his entire case rests on the testimony of Ellis herself, with no corroborating witnesses to the actual alleged assault. Then he tried to explain away all the contradictions in Ellis's story. Remember how Ellis couldn't keep straight whether the scratch was on her cheek or her nose? John Faza's explanation:
This is a 7.5-year-old incident. And that's a few thousand days ago. It takes a lot of time has passed, and an incident can be perceived differently by different people. So Miss Malcolm could have perceived it one way, and Dr. Finke could have perceived it one way.
But if you're suing someone for $24 million, shouldn't you at least be able to consistently identify where you were allegedly injured? The most damaging part of John Faza's closing argument was when he had to address Dr. Mulliken's testimony about the direction of the alleged scratches. Remember, Dr. Mulliken testified that the scratches were made by a right-handed person swiping downward. But Cardi is left-handed. This is potentially case-ending evidence that Ellis's own expert witness provided. John Faza's response? He completely ignored it. He didn't even try to explain how a left-handed person could have made right-handed scratches. He just moved on and hoped the jury wouldn't notice. He also had to deal with the fact that Ellis went home and took a nap after this allegedly traumatic assault. His explanation? She was too emotionally overwhelmed to seek medical attention. But Ellis's own cell phone records show she was making and receiving calls until 3:35 p.m., then had a gap until 9:08 p.m., exactly when she said she took a nap. If you're traumatized and injured, are you really going to be casually taking calls and then sleeping it off? The most telling part of his argument was when he asked for specific dollar amounts. He requested $16,500 in past medical bills, $15,000 for future surgery, up to $500,000 in pain and suffering damages. Wait, weren't they asking for $24 million? What happened there? But here's what he couldn't explain. Why someone who took multiple trips to Hawaii, advanced in her career, and got a higher paying job after this incident deserves hundreds of thousands in damages for alleged trauma. Cardi's attorney, Peter Anderson's closing argument was a masterclass in systematically destroying a weak case with facts and common sense. He started by addressing the profanity complaint directly.
Counsel argued that Cardi swore and used profanities in the courtroom and that was disrespectful. Actually, all she was doing was repeating under oath what was said. In fact, Ms. Ellis, plaintiff, used profanities to describe what she heard. Counsel used profanities, and I have to admit I used profanities, but just to tell you what was supposedly said. Cardi has never gratuitously sworn at any point in this courtroom, and the suggestion that you should be prejudiced against her because of that is just unfounded and offensive.
Then he laid out the fundamental problem with Ellis's case.
You'll be instructed that plaintiff bears the burden of proof of establishing her claim. She must convince you that the evidence shows that by 50% or more her claims are valid. Now there's another way of putting it is, if plaintiff fails to prove that her version of what happened is more likely than not what did in fact happen, you must decide the case in Cardi's favor. That's 50-50. That's where the plaintiff has put on as much evidence of as the defendant of a fact, and you'll see that that's where people talk about the 51%. But it is crucial to keep in mind that plaintiff doesn't start at 50%, she starts at 0. She has to raise that needle from 0 to 50% and more. She has to go beyond 50%, or you have to find for Cardi.
This was crucial. Ellis didn't just need to tip the scales slightly in her favor. In civil court, you need to prove your case is more likely than not to have happened. That's 51%. But as Anderson pointed out, Ellis didn't start at 50-50. She started with 0 evidence and had to build up to that 51% threshold. And with contradictory witnesses, expert testimony that proved she was lying, and 0 corroborating evidence, she never even got close. Ellis's behavior after the alleged assault. She went home and took a nap. She didn't call police, didn't go to a hospital, didn't even put a Band-Aid on the supposed scratch. Her own cell phone records corroborate that she was casually taking calls and then sleeping. The car accident issue. Ellis admitted to a car accident in 2021 where she hit her head. This was after she told Dr. McKenzie, her psychologist, in 2018 that Cardi almost touched her with a fingernail. Not that she actually did. The plastic surgery didn't happen until 2022, after the car accident. The medical expert's contradiction? Dr. Mulliken, her plastic surgeon, said the scratches were made by a right-handed person, but Cardi is left-handed. Anderson emphasized this point.
Importantly, Dr. Mulliken testified at his deposition and that the claim scar was about an inch long and most likely made by a right-handed person who scraped or clawed downward with 3 fingers. But plaintiff herself claimed in her deposition that Cardi jabbed her with a straightened index finger, like this. That's not a scrape.
When you say it like this, she put her finger?
Pointing, yes, so like this, pointing her finger in my face, yes.
That is directly and irreconcilably in conflict with Dr. Mulligan's testimony that it was a right-handed person who scraped with an index finger and two other fingers downward. They don't correlate. The testimony is clear that plaintiff and her plastic surgeon have completely different explanations for the same claims, with plaintiff's own testimony that she was jabbed with the straightened finger. And to add to that, Cardi is not right-handed. I want to say that again, it's very important. Dr. Mulligan says that in his professional opinion, and counsel talked about how well respected he is, that it was a right-handed person who scraped three fingers downward across plaintiff's face, but Cardi is left-handed. She is not a right-handed person and could not have done that.
The financial incentive. Dr. Mulligan was working on a lien basis, meaning he only gets paid if Ellis wins. He also added a 20% premium to his bill because of this risk, giving him a huge financial incentive to support Ellis's case. Anderson methodically went through the contradictions in Ellis's story. The scratch location. Ellis's incident report 2 days after said Cardi scratched her nose, but her mother and grandmother testified about a scratch on her cheek. Anderson pointed out a nose is not a cheek is not a nose, and there is something wrong about what's going on. The grandmother's testimony. Ellis's grandmother said she spoke with Ellis right after the incident, but Ellis testified she didn't call her grandmother at all. The mechanism of injury. Ellis testified Cardi jabbed her with a straightened index finger, but Dr. Mulligan said it was a right-handed person who scraped with 3 fingers downward. Anderson showed the jury those are completely different things. They don't correlate. The witness problem. Ellis never called the receptionist or doctor as witnesses for her case, even though they were present during the incident. Why not? Because their testimony would have contradicted her story. Anderson's most powerful point was about Ellis's motivation. She was a fan who just happened to be outside Dr. Fink's office when Cardi B was showing up. From those facts alone, you can infer that she was actually laying in wait. Here's where Ellis's case completely falls apart under scrutiny. Janfaza asked for medical expenses, $31,500 total. $16,500 past, $15,000 future. Pain and suffering, up to $500,000. Emotional distress, additional damages on top of the above. But Anderson pointed out that Ellis got a better paying job after being fired, so there are no lost wages. She took leisure trips to Hawaii after the alleged trauma. She advanced her career and became a social worker helping families. The plastic surgery didn't happen until 2022. 4 years after the incident and after a car accident where she hit her head. Dr. Mulligan admitted he couldn't determine when the scar occurred or whether it was from an intervening accident. Most damaging of all, Ellis told Dr. McKenzie in 2018 that Cardi almost touched her with a fingernail. Not that she actually did touch her. This completely contradicts her lawsuit claims of being scratched and cut. What we're seeing in these closing arguments is a perfect example of how frivolous celebrity lawsuits work. 1. Make shocking allegations that will generate headlines. 2. Wait years to file until the celebrity is at peak wealth and fame. 3. Demand outrageous amounts to pressure settlement. 4. Use character attacks when the evidence doesn't support your claims. 5. Play the victim, even when your own behavior was inappropriate. Ellis's case hits every one of these points. The allegations are serious, but unsupported. She waited 2 years to file when Cardi was at her most successful. She's asking for $24 million for a 60-second argument. Her attorney resorted to asking about wigs and gang affiliations when he couldn't prove assault. And when Cardi defended herself against inappropriate questioning outside the courthouse, Ellis's attorney tried to use that as evidence of her violent character. This is exactly the kind of legal harassment that successful people, particularly women of color, face when they achieve prominence. The message is clear. You can be attacked. Your character can be assassinated, and if you defend yourself, that will be used against you too. And as I write this breakdown, we're getting the verdict now. A Los Angeles jury delivered a knockout verdict. Cardi B has been completely exonerated, found not liable for assault, battery, negligence, or emotional distress in the civil trial filed by former security guard Emani Ellis. After less than an hour of deliberation, the 12-member panel cast a unanimous vote. Cardi will face no damages and walks free. So here we are at the end of this $24 million legal circus, and justice has been served with a side of wig-induced forehead trauma. The jury saw through Ellis's contradictory testimony, her attorney's desperate tactics, and the complete absence of credible evidence. But let's talk about the real MVP of this story, Cardi B's forehead, which apparently took more damage from costume changes than Ellis claims to have suffered from the entire alleged assault. At least Cardi's forehead has actual evidence of injury. Those wigs don't lie.
Telling you guys, when I say that my forehead is raw from changing all these wigs, raw. And yeah, thank you for the witnesses and thank you for everybody that just took their time to come out here.
In all seriousness, though, Cardi's post-trial interview showed a level of maturity and grace that honestly surprised me. After being dragged through a frivolous lawsuit for years, missing her children's milestones.
I know you guys having a little key with the moment, but to be honest with you, I have missed my kids' first day of school today. I missed my kids' last week of school yesterday because of this.
And having her character assassinated by inappropriate legal tactics, she could have been vindictive. Instead, she chose protection over revenge.
I'm not even playing around. I will, even if I'm in my deathbed, I swear to God, I will say it in my deathbed. I did not touch that woman. I did not touch that girl. I didn't lay my hands on that girl. And with that being said, this time around, I'm going to be nice. The next person to try to do a frivolous lawsuit against me, I'm going to countersue. And I'm gonna make you pay, because this is not okay. I think people have like these misinterpretations of celebrities, like it's like, oh well, we can ask for this and they're gonna settle. You don't work at home and you don't work all day and you don't work for your money to give out your money. So don't ever think that I'm just gonna give you my money that I work hard for. I don't lay in bed all day, I work all day, and I work hard for my money, for my kids and for people I take care of. So don't you ever think that you're gonna sue me and I'm just gonna settle and just give me my money. It's not gonna happen.
Her warning about future lawsuits was perfect, though. This is exactly the energy we need. It's like putting a sign on your lawn that says, "Beware of dog," except it's beware of legal team that just demolished a $24 million case. And can we talk about how this trial is about to boost Am I the Drama to the top of the charts? Nothing sells albums quite like being completely vindicated in a highly publicized legal battle. The timing couldn't be more perfect. Cardi just proved she's not the drama. She's the one who shuts drama down with facts and evidence. The real losers in all this, the California taxpayers who funded this legal fever dream that had less credibility than a reality TV show plot. While Ellis was demanding $500,000 for her alleged suffering, taxpayers were covering the cost of court time, jury pay, and administrative expenses for a case that should never have survived a basic credibility check. The unanimous verdict wasn't just a win for Cardi. It was a message to every opportunistic person with a lawyer's phone number who thinks celebrities are walking ATMs. The jury basically said, "We see through your obvious money grab, and we're not here for it." Her gracious handling of Ellis in the post-trial interview was the cherry on top.
I do also want fans at home, though, not to find their social media, her family's social media, her social media, and bother her. I hope that this is something that I leave behind, that she leave behind. Don't go bother her. Don't be talking about her. Don't be talking about how she look. Don't call her no nasty names. Let's just put this behind. But I'm giving a warning. I am not that celeb that you're gonna sue and you think it's gonna settle. I'm not gonna settle, especially when I'm super completely innocent. I know I got a little reputation, but I swear to God I'm innocent. I swear to God.
We believe you, Cardi.
Like I'm really innocent for real.
Protecting someone who just tried to destroy you financially shows character that goes way beyond courtroom victories. That's the kind of leadership the entertainment industry needs more of.
Emani, are you disappointed with the verdict?
Not at all. I don't think that it reflects the truth, but I'm not disappointed. We know that the justice system is sometimes flawed, and unfortunately, that was the case for me. I think we fought a good fight, but like I said, more importantly, it's about accountability. I had my day in court. I showed up. I held my head high, and I can walk away and say that I showed up, and she had to look me in the eye. I had to look her in the eye.
Sure about how the defendant conducted herself in court?
I thought it was totally unprofessional. I think it showed value to her character, the type of person that she is. A lot of her body language, her body gestures, her facial expressions, her disrespect for the court, I think speaks to who she is. I think we saw how I conducted myself during this trial, and I think that speaks volume.
You know what's more entertaining than watching someone lose a $24 million lawsuit? Watching them convince themselves they actually won. Because apparently when 12 jurors unanimously reject every single one of your claims in less than an hour, that's just the justice system being flawed. We just witnessed one of the most satisfying legal beatdowns in recent memory. And instead of accepting reality, Emani Ellis doubled down on delusion with a post-trial interview that had me questioning whether she understood what the word unanimous means. But here's what nobody's talking about while they're laughing at the audacity. This wasn't just a courtroom victory for Cardi B. It was a masterclass in how grace under pressure completely destroys your opponent's credibility. And trust me, what Ellis said after losing might be even more damaging to her reputation than anything that happened during the actual trial. I'm about to break down the most delusional post-trial interviews I've ever witnessed, explain why Ellis's threat to appeal is basically legal comedy, and show you exactly how Cardi B just became the blueprint for handling frivolous celebrity lawsuits. But buckle up, because the level of self-deception we're about to explore is so profound, it makes reality TV look grounded in facts. Before we dive into this psychological study of denial, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're spilling tea that's so hot, it might actually wake Ellis up from whatever alternate reality she's been living in for the past 7 years. Though honestly, I'm not holding my breath. The moment those courthouse doors opened, we got to see the true character of both women involved in this legal circus. And the contrast was more stark than Ellis's testimony contradictions. Cardi B walked out victorious but humble. Despite being completely exonerated, despite having her character assassinated for days, despite missing her children's milestones for this nonsense, she chose grace. Meanwhile, Ellis stepped up to those same microphones with the kind of cognitive dissonance that should be studied in psychology textbooks. When asked about her feelings regarding the unanimous verdict, she responded, "I don't think that it reflects the truth, but I'm not disappointed." We know that the justice system is sometimes flawed, and unfortunately, that was the case for me. Let that sink in for a moment. 12 people listened to all the evidence, heard from multiple witnesses, examined expert testimony, and unanimously concluded she was lying. But according to Ellis, they're all wrong. The justice system is flawed. Everyone else is the problem. This is the same person who couldn't keep her story straight about which part of her face was allegedly scratched, whose own expert witness proved she was lying about how the injury occurred, and who admitted to taking a nap after this supposedly traumatic assault. But sure, the unanimous jury verdict doesn't reflect the truth. Ellis's post-trial interview reads like a masterclass in how not to handle defeat. When given the opportunity to show some dignity, maybe acknowledge that the jury saw something she didn't, or at least express some understanding of how the evidence looked from an outside perspective, she chose to double down on delusion.
For me, like I said, I still stand firm on my position. I still stand firm on my attorney. I think we fought a good fight, but like I said, more importantly, it's about accountability.
She declared, as if standing firm on a position that just got unanimously rejected by a jury somehow makes it more credible. It's like insisting the Earth is flat after watching a rocket launch from space. But the most telling moment came when she was asked if she was sorry she brought the case.
Are you sorry you brought the case in retrospect?
Not at all. Not at all.
She responded, without hesitation. This woman just put the court system through years of proceedings, wasted taxpayer money, dragged Cardi away from her children for a case with zero evidence, and she has no regrets whatsoever. The reporter pressed further about Cardi's gracious request that fans leave Ellis alone, asking if that meant anything to her. Ellis's response was peak delusion.
Miss Ellis, Cardi did ask that the public please leave you alone, not slander you, say things behind your back on social media. Does that mean anything to you?
That's news to me. She's never told me that. She's never even offered me an apology. So I'm not sure.
An apology. She wants an apology from the woman she just unsuccessfully sued for $24 million based on fabricated claims. The woman who just got completely vindicated by a unanimous jury verdict should apparently apologize to her false accuser. The mental gymnastics required to reach that conclusion deserve an Olympic medal. If Ellis's interview was delusional, her attorney Ron Rosenjohn-Faza's performance was straight up embarrassing. This man just suffered one of the most humiliating courtroom defeats in recent memory, And instead of taking responsibility for bringing a meritless case, he decided to blame everyone else. His post-trial strategy apparently involved attacking Cardi for the pen-throwing incident outside the courthouse.
I disagree with the verdict. As you know, you can see from Cardi B, she has a history of doing these things. Even today in the courthouse, right in where I'm standing in this area, she threw something at one of you. And I think that's just, very poor judgment on her part to go ahead and do something like that. Here in the courthouse, this is a court. You don't do this, it's wrong, and she really, made a fool of herself, in my opinion.
This is the same man whose client just lost a unanimous verdict, and he's trying to salvage his reputation by criticizing how Cardi responded to inappropriate questions about paternity and pregnancy rumors. The reporter who asked those questions was completely out of line.
Cardi, insiders are claiming that Offset is publicly bragging about getting you pregnant for the 4th time. Do you foresee any paternity issues with Stephon Diggs?
But apparently Faiza thinks defending yourself against harassment is worse than filing frivolous lawsuits. When asked about the basis for an appeal, Faiza gave perhaps the most telling response of the entire post-trial circus.
With a unanimous verdict, what is the basis for an appeal? Would it be a factual error, something that the judge did wrong? What would the basis be for an appeal?
Well, there's many different things that occurred. I can't really get into the details now. That would be for the appellate attorney that I work with, who's going to be handling that with me, and we will decide how we're going to handle it.
Translation: I have absolutely no legal basis for an appeal, but I need to say something to justify why my client is about to throw more money at this lost cause. The fact that he can't articulate a single specific grounds for appeal tells you everything you need to know about how strong this case actually was. Real lawyers with real appeals can usually explain their legal theory in clear terms. Desperate attorneys grasping for straws give vague non-answers about many different things. Let's talk about the elephant in the room that nobody's addressing. Ellis is apparently planning to appeal this unanimous verdict, which raises some fascinating questions about her financial situation and decision-making process. Appeals are expensive. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees, court costs, and other expenses. This is for a case that just got rejected so thoroughly that 12 jurors needed less than an hour to unanimously conclude she was lying. What exactly is Ellis's financial strategy here? If she's been working as a security guard and then a social worker, where is she getting the money for this legal crusade? Is someone else funding this lawsuit? Because normal people don't typically have the resources to pursue multi-year litigation against celebrities unless there's some external financial backing. The timeline is also suspicious. She waited 2 years after the incident to file the original lawsuit, right when Cardi was at peak success and maximum wealth. Now she wants to appeal immediately after losing unanimously. That suggests this was never really about justice or accountability. It was always about finding a way to extract money from a successful celebrity. But here's what really gets me. If I were a bar-certified attorney looking at this case, I would run in the opposite direction so fast I'd leave cartoon dust clouds. What self-respecting lawyer wants to be associated with appealing a unanimous verdict in a case this weak? The legal community is small, and reputations matter. Taking on Ellis's appeal is basically volunteering to have your name attached to one of the most obviously frivolous celebrity lawsuits in recent memory. Since Ellis is apparently determined to continue this legal comedy show, let me explain exactly what she's up against in the appeals process. And trust me, it's not going to be pretty. Civil appeals aren't do-overs. You can't just say, "We didn't like the verdict," and get another trial. Appeals courts only review whether the lower court made legal errors that affected the outcome. They don't re-examine evidence or make new factual determinations. So what exactly is Ellis going to argue on appeal? That the judge made some reversible error in allowing the jury to hear testimony from the doctor and receptionist who witnessed the incident? That there was some procedural mistake that somehow invalidated 12 people's unanimous conclusion that she was lying? The standard for overturning a jury verdict is incredibly high, especially in civil cases. Ellis would need to prove that no reasonable jury could have reached this conclusion based on the evidence presented. But we're talking about a case where her own expert witness contradicted her story, where independent witnesses disputed her version of events, and where she couldn't even keep her basic facts straight. What new evidence is magically going to appear that wasn't available during the original trial? Is Ellis going to suddenly remember some crucial detail that somehow escaped her during years of depositions and testimony? Are there secret witnesses who have been hiding for 7 years just waiting for the appeal? The appeals court doesn't care about Ellis's feelings or her interpretation of what happened. They care about legal standards and procedural correctness. And from everything we've seen, this trial was conducted properly, with competent legal representation on both sides. The jury was presented with evidence, they evaluated credibility, and they reached a unanimous conclusion. Even if Ellis somehow managed to win an appeal on technical grounds, all that would do is send the case back for another trial. And guess what? All the same evidence that convinced 12 jurors she was lying would still be there. Her story would still be inconsistent. The expert testimony would still contradict her claims. The independent witnesses would still dispute her version of events. But here's what really gets me fired up about this appeal threat. We're talking about another massive waste of taxpayer dollars for a case that's already been thoroughly litigated and unanimously rejected. Court time, judges' salaries, bailiffs, court reporters, administrative costs, all of it funded by the public, so Ellis can continue her personal vendetta against reality. The original trial already cost taxpayers thousands of dollars in court resources. Now she wants to drag the appeals court into this delusion, forcing them to review a case where 12 jurors needed less than an hour to see through her lies. That's judicial resources that could be used for legitimate legal disputes, real appeals with actual merit, cases that deserve court attention. Instead, we'll have appeals judges wasting time reading through transcripts of a case where the plaintiff couldn't even keep her story straight about which part of her face was allegedly scratched. Taxpayers will fund the administrative costs, while Ellis pursues what amounts to a legal temper tantrum disguised as appellate procedure. What we're witnessing with Ellis's post-trial behavior is a fascinating psychological phenomenon. Instead of accepting the reality of a unanimous jury verdict, she's chosen to construct an alternative narrative where everyone else is wrong and she's the victim of a flawed system. But here's what's really troubling about this mindset. Ellis is apparently planning to go to law school.
Miss Ellis, what's next for you?
I'm going to law school.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. I
Did this
appreciate that.
case prompt you to decide to go to law school?
I had already had plans on going to law school, but I think during this case, it kind of amplified a lot of those dreams.
She wants to become an attorney. This is someone who just demonstrated a fundamental inability to accept legal processes and outcomes when they don't go her way. She's shown that she's willing to waste court resources on meritless claims and then blame the system when her delusional case gets rejected. Do we really need more lawyers who think the justice system is only valid when it produces the results they want? While Ellis was busy constructing her alternative reality, Cardi B was demonstrating the kind of strategic thinking that separates successful people from perpetual victims. Her post-trial interview wasn't just gracious, it was brilliant legal and public relations strategy. By immediately asking her fans to leave Ellis alone, Cardi positioned herself as the mature party, while highlighting Ellis's vindictive nature by contrast. She protected someone who had just tried to destroy her financially, showing the kind of character that Ellis's lawsuit claimed she lacked. But the real strategic masterstroke was her warning about future frivolous lawsuits. Cardi just proved that she's willing to fight these cases in court rather than settling quietly. She demonstrated that frivolous claims will be exposed and defeated, and she put potential opportunists on notice that there will be financial consequences for wasting her time and resources. The timing of this message, coming right after a unanimous vindication, gives it maximum credibility. This isn't empty posturing. It's a proven track record backed by courtroom victories. Ellis's delusional post-trial behavior represents something bigger than just one person's inability to accept reality. It's a symptom of a culture where some people believe they're entitled to other people's success, where accountability is optional and where victim status can be claimed regardless of evidence.
Do you feel like you've been painted in a bad light in the public?
I think from the defendant, yes. But that's what she's gonna do. She's gonna make me seem like a bad person. I know who I am. I know the things that I've accomplished. So that's all that matters to me.
You started out as a fan of her music. Are you still a fan today?
No,
Will you be listening to her new album? It drops in 6 days, she keeps saying.
not at all.
Ellis's refusal to accept this outcome, her threats to appeal a unanimous verdict, and her continued insistence that she's the real victim only reinforce how right the jury was to reject her claims completely.
The real question now is whether Ellis will continue this legal comedy show through the appeals process, or whether someone in her life will finally convince her that 12 jurors might actually know something she doesn't. But based on her post-trial interviews, I'm not holding my breath for a sudden outbreak of self-awareness. What do you think? Is Ellis's refusal to accept a unanimous verdict the most delusional post-trial behavior you've ever seen? Or have you witnessed something even more disconnected from reality? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let me know if you think anyone will actually be brave enough to take on this hopeless appeal. The tea has been spilled, the truth has been revealed, and the delusion has been exposed. Sometimes that's all you can do when reality meets someone who's determined to live in an alternate universe of their own creation.